Are you looking for a new way to simultaneously meet the needs of your lower students, on grade level students, and your learners who need a challenge? In today's episode, we are joined by Kelsey Hardwick, who is here to share how math centers can be the tool that helps meet every student's needs. Let's get started. Welcome to Solving for the Undefined podcast. I'm your host, Johanna, founder of Miss Kuiper's Classroom, the place that equips teachers in creating a healthy math classroom where students can thrive, no matter their academic abilities. But it's not always about the numbers, and that's why I'm here, bringing you the formulas to solve your problems, math and otherwise, plus strategies on cultivating that necessary math mindset. And that's what you can count on. All right. Hello. Welcome to a brand new episode. Today we are joined by Kelsey, and we're going to be talking about math centers. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So will you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Kelsey Hardwick, and I've been working in classrooms for 11 years. I'm about to finish my 5th year teaching 6th grade math. I'm very passionate about math centers and have learned a lot of tips and tricks along the way through trial and error to having successful math centers in the classroom. I help 4th through 8th grade math teachers plan and organize math centers without the chaos and overwhelm. I have been providing quality and engaging resources to help math teachers since 2020.
Nice. I didn't know you've been teaching for 11 years. That's awesome.
I haven't been teaching for 11 years. I have just been in the classroom for 11 years. I actually started while I was going to college. I started in the classroom as an assistant teacher and substitute. So I've had a lot of experience in the classroom.
That's awesome. Thank you for being a sub. I know how challenging that can be, or at least in my perception of it, walking into a classroom not knowing what to expect and then just being the teacher for the day.
It taught me a lot, though, about my current position as a classroom teacher. I was able to get some experience that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
That's awesome. So what got you interested and passionate about doing math centers?
The main reason I started using math centers, I started using them 5 years ago when I started teaching. Our school district said we would like for you all to use more centers and small groups in your classrooms. And another reason was because I felt the whole group lessons were boring for myself and my students, and I was only reaching one type of learner each day. I wanted to be able to differentiate to meet the needs of all of my learners and increase student engagement with movement and activities. And some days I was able to reach the learners that needed additional support. However, this meant that my learners who required an extension were bored. And when I was reaching out to my extended learners, my students who needed the extra assistance were lost and falling behind. And it felt like a never-ending cycle that just didn't work. And so I didn't like not being able to reach all of my learners. And I wanted something to change.
I love that you were able to take something that you knew wasn't working both for yourself and for your students and to change it up to meet everyone in your class, no matter where their academic ability lies. And two, I love the fact that you added the movement piece, because that's one of my main things is adding movement to learning in the math classroom. And that's not something you see often.
Right, it's not. And I know that as an educator, I like to be able to get up and move around. And I know that my students do too. I don't want them to be bored and falling asleep. I want them to be able to move around and collaborate with their peers.
Exactly. Yes. Can you tell us, what are math centers?
Math centers are learning stations that are flexible and meet the unique needs of students by providing differentiated activities and giving students a choice. Centers can boost student confidence, comprehension, performance, and build a positive classroom community. During math centers, students practice previously taught skills to reinforce and extend their learning. Form groups of students based on their needs and provide them with opportunities for collaboration. Centers are an excellent way for students to work independently or in small groups to apply, explore, practice, and extend their mathematical concepts and understanding.
Awesome. So you said apply, extend, and can you say the other two again?
Apply, explore, practice, and extend.
Awesome. And so during that math center time, are you at one specific station or are you kind of walking around monitoring everything?
It depends on the day. Most of the time, I'm working with a small group, and the other students get their expectations ahead of time and know what's expected of them. And the key is consistency, to not change things up, to keep everything the same. I think that's very important, that the students know that when I'm working with my small group, they know not to interrupt me, that's very quality time with that small group.
Mm-hmm. And two, I feel like that fosters independence for the students themselves and forces them in a positive way to collaborate with each other to work through any problems they have or stuck points.
Right.
And then for those students who are then helping each other, when you are teaching something, your brain better understands it through that. I had an anatomy teacher in high school and he didn't give any homework. The only thing that we had to do after class was to teach one person something that we learned from the class, because when you teach it, you are learning it deeper and better because you have to in order to teach it. And so by allowing students to work independently and not have you to kind of field those questions, you're helping students more deeply understand the math and have that independence in the math classroom.
Right. And I think it teaches them those collaboration and leadership skills by being able to problem solve and work together.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Which kind of leads us into some of the benefits of using centers. What other benefits are there?
There are many benefits to using math centers in the classroom. I've been using math centers in my classroom for a few years now, and I have seen the benefits firsthand. Having consistent math centers has changed the way that my students interact with me. I think as teachers, we work hard to have a positive impact on as many students as possible, and it's almost impossible to do that with whole group teaching. We all have students who sleep, students who are disengaged, and students who are below grade level, and even those high achievers who require a challenge so that they don't get bored and disengaged. Each group is able to work on activities that are at their appropriate level, and some of the benefits include increased student engagement, collaboration, differentiation, and individual and small group teaching. I go into more detail about Math Center benefits in a blog post on benefits of Math Centers in 4th through 8th grade classrooms, which I will link below.
Yeah, that will definitely be in the description as well as the show notes, so you can have easy access to that. So it seems like doing math centers has a huge impact on everything within the math classroom in forming students to become better mathematicians. So I know a lot of teachers tend to not do math centers because it seems overwhelming. So can you tell us what your first experience with math centers was like?
Absolutely. My first experience using math centers was pure chaos. I felt like the ringleader of a 3-ring circus. And when I did math centers for the first time, I didn't have a plan. I kind of did it by the seat of my pants and just threw students into it. Didn't have any specifics for grouping them. I just put them in groups at different stations, and I had like 4 to 5 stations going on. And so it was total chaos.
Nice.
My teaching bestie and I across the hall, she and I both looked at each other after class and we were like, what the heck are math centers? This can't be it. She had taught a whole lot longer than I had, but neither one of us really knew what we were doing and we just jumped right in. And the first day I thought, we can't keep going like this. But I kept going. And what was missing? I didn't have a plan in place. I just had a bunch of activities printed out and thrown together and put students in random groups. The students didn't know what to do, and neither did I. After several chaotic tries, I got myself together and created a plan. And planning is everything. Planning ahead of time will save you from stress and overwhelm the day of math centers. I now implement effective routines, organization systems, expectations, and I am prepared.
Nice. So definitely a plan in place sounds like the way to go when it comes to math centers.
Absolutely.
In that planning, how do you plan out the stations? What do those look like?
Stations look like students being actively engaged and focused and working for the entire center time. There is a lot of consistency. It looks like students learning together, during cooperative activities and alone during independent activities. I like to use spiral reviews so that students can review previously taught material. I like to have a reflection station so that students can reflect and write about their learning, a technology station for them to boost their skills, and teacher time for differentiation. It's important to meet students exactly where they are.
I love that variety in there too. Like each station is clearly different than the other. And I love that reflection piece that they're writing down something about what they learned or reflecting on how well they're doing, whatever it is. Having students self reflect is going to be huge, huge benefits in the long run because you're, again, teaching them to be independent workers and thinkers. And reflection is a huge part of that process. And I know for me as a teacher, just going back and reflecting on how did this lesson go allows me to teach better the next day. And so for a learner, it allows them to think about how they can do better or what they need to work on the next day too.
Right. I feel like reflection makes us better teachers and reflection makes the students better learners.
Yes, agreed. We're here to give you an extra boost for this back to school season with a bonus sale on Teachers Pay Teachers. Coming up on Tuesday and Wednesday, August 29th and 30th, you can save up to 25% on resources site-wide. This is the perfect time to try the Name Tent and A to Z Get to Know Me activity from episode 67, or my mild, medium, and spicy practice and active notes from episodes 68 and 70. Whichever resources you choose, make sure to use code BTSBonus23 at checkout to get the complete 25% off your purchase. Now let's get back to the podcast. I know you talked about this before a little bit. How do you group students?
I use flexible grouping. I use data to group my students, such as exit ticket data, assessment data, or I group them based on their academic skills. I think the flexible grouping is a great way to set up math centers, and students are able to actively learn from each other in a small group setting. And groups should be flexible and fluid because they will change frequently in order to meet student needs. They change with time, topics, and the needs of the learners.
And I'm sure that helps too with that piece where they're with you in that small group where you are differentiating based on their needs. So if you have that flexible grouping that's based on their academic skills or based on the data, that's really going to drive what you're going to do in that small group time.
Absolutely.
So I know the first time you did it, you said it was chaos. And once you implemented a plan and were consistent, things got a lot better. So what does the classroom management look like? What did you put in place to allow yourself to have more of a streamlined centers time?
I definitely put systems in place. And classroom management changes because students are more accountable during centers. Meeting students where they are boosts their confidence and independence, so it's easier to hold them accountable. Having established routines and procedures helps the students be more successful, and having routines in place and organized materials and systems is essential because students are not running around and looking for materials.
So that planning ahead of time and having everything ready for them to go seems like it would limit them getting up and movement, which I know in my classroom, when kids are up and moving, that's when things become bigger problems. Yes.
Right. Limited movement is very important.
I agree. I do vertical whiteboards, and so I have my groups of 3 standing at whiteboards, and I don't allow them to go and talk to other teams, like maybe the ones right next to them, but if they have to physically leave their board to go do something, that's a big no-no.
Right.
Because it introduces chaos into everything. You pass by a friend, now you start talking, and now not only are you off task, but you're getting another group off task too.
I have the same routine in my classroom. Students can talk within their group, but they cannot talk to another group during center time.
I like it. So, how often do you do centers?
I try to do centers 3 to 4 times a week, but I have a 90-minute schedule. I think how often that you do math centers depends on your class schedule. I think it's important to try to meet with each group at least twice a week if time allows. And I meet with 2 groups on Monday, Wednesday, on the Monday, Wednesday rotation, and then I meet with 2 other groups on the Tuesday, Thursday rotation. I try to do the centers Monday through Thursday, and then Fridays are spent on assessments, completing any missing center work, or one-on-one conferences with the students, going over data and progress monitoring and setting goals.
That's cool. I can't even imagine 90-minute periods. We have an hour long, like 58 minutes, and like that's enough. After 58 minutes, I'm like, goodbye. I'll see you tomorrow. I don't think I could do 90 minutes.
At first, I was like, I can't do 90 minutes. How am I going to keep them occupied, or how am I going to teach for 90 minutes? But now, having systems and routines in place, the time flies because it allows me to teach for 45 minutes and then have centers for 45 minutes, or 40 to 45 minutes, I say. So it allows for more differentiated instruction and more center time, and to be able to meet the needs of those students in the small groups.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Like breaking it up into 2 sections, like kind of having a lesson or like together time up front, and then using the second half of class as like center time.
Right.
I like that. Is that what it looks like every day, Monday through Thursday, having like a lesson together and then center time?
Typically, there are times that we take the whole 90 minutes and we split the groups up and work with stations or centers the entire time, and we may do a mini lesson with each group.
Oh, okay.
When they are doing the small group with the teacher, we do mini lessons. Just depends on the day, depends on the topic.
Okay, I like that. So kind of going back to teachers and what they'll say in response to thinking about math centers, a lot of them say it's too time consuming. And what would you say to that?
We all know that math centers have a lot of moving parts, and it can be time consuming to manage all the moving parts. And I think that oftentimes teachers say that the organization part is what holds them back from having math centers in their classroom. But having an effective organization systems in place saves so much time.
I bet. And two, I'm sure templates are something that would be helpful too.
Templates are very helpful as far as creating math center resources for your classroom.
Yeah. Kelsey has a mini offer course thing. What would you call it?
It's a Math Center's Toolkit.
Math Center's Toolkit coming out soon, and that could be something for you if you're interested in helping making it less time consuming.
Less time consuming and maximizes student learning.
Yes, exactly. So, how can teachers get started using math centers in their classroom?
The first step to getting started with math centers is to create a plan and put effective systems in place. I help teachers with how to do this in my free guide, The Ultimate Math Centers Guide, which I will link below.
Yes. I have seen it, and it is definitely very helpful, and I'm thinking about trying it out in my own classroom. We'll see how it goes. I'm definitely nervous. I'm fearing the chaos, but I know that if I put those systems and plans in place, that it could be extremely beneficial for students.
Absolutely.
So, what are some other resources that can help teachers learn more?
I have a blog. What are math centers and why are they so important? And then, as we stated earlier, the benefits of math centers. I have some vocabulary math center activities on there just to kind of help you get started with centers and learn more about them.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing all of those things. Was there anything that Math Center related that we haven't talked about yet that you'd like to share?
Not that I can think of. Just start with a plan and get some effective organization systems in place, and it will run smoothly. It might take a little while, but it will run smoothly once you get those systems in place.
Yes. Practice, practice, and some more practice.
That's right. Practice makes perfect, they say.
Yes. And then self-reflection on that practice.
Absolutely.
All right. So as we kind of wrap up today, there's one question that I ask every person I interview, and that is, what is your favorite math-related joke or pun?
Why shouldn't you ever argue with a 90-degree angle?
Why?
They're always right.
I love it. That's a good one. I've always heard the one of, if you're cold, stand in a corner because they're always 90 degrees.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. I love angle jokes. They're so good.
I actually had a student that drew me a picture with that joke on it at the beginning of the year, and it had the little 90-degree angle, and it was really cute.
That's awesome. Kids are so creative.
They are creative.
All right. Tell people where they can find you.
They can find me at kelseyhardwick.com. They can find me on Instagram at Kelsey D. Hardwick and on Facebook at Kelsey D. Hardwick.
Awesome. And I will link all of that in the show notes and the description so that way you can just click and follow. All right. Well, thank you again for taking the time to share your expertise on math centers.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. To find all the links and resources to things talked about in this episode, head on over to MissKuipersClassroom.com and click on podcast.